Hi everyone, so today it's going to be the part 1 of the ultimate photographic iceberg. So basically, this part 1 will cover the iconic photographs like the photo of Buzz Aldrin on the moon or VJ Day in Times Square, and then the part 2, which I'll upload next, will cover photos with disturbing backstories. And then finally, in the part 3, this iceberg will step into the cursed photos or almost the creepy pasta territory. So yeah, that means this part 1 will be covering a ton of the iconic photos that have been taken in the last 150 years or so. And you probably know, but just in case you don't, iceberg videos start off with well-known entries, and towards the end they become lesser known and dark, and this part 1 will follow the same pattern. So without wasting any further time, let's begin the video. Our first photo is called Bliss. You might know it better as the Windows XP wallpaper. Originally titled Bucolic Green Hills, it became the default wallpaper for Microsoft's Windows XP system. Remarkably, the image is virtually unedited. What you see, the green hills, blue sky, and white clouds, is almost exactly as captured. The photo depicts the Los Carneros American viticultural area in California's wine country. Photographer Charles O'Rear took the photo in 1996 and sold the rights to Microsoft in 2000. It is estimated to be one of the most viewed images in history, with billions of views. Given the widespread use of Windows XP, this claim seems quite believable. Windows XP had a significant impact, staying in use for many years. Even today, some businesses still operate on Windows XP. It's more commonly seen than its successor, Windows Vista, which didn't achieve the same level of popularity. The iconic Bliss image undoubtedly contributes to the lasting cultural footprint of Windows XP. Our next image is called the Blue Marble. This iconic photo holds significant cultural importance and may be familiar to many as a wallpaper option on early iPhone models, such as the iPhone 3G or 3GS. There's a memorable commercial where a hand navigates through an iPhone lock screen, and the blue marble or a similar image is featured as the wallpaper. The photo was taken on December 7, 1972, from about 18,000 miles away from Earth by the crew of the Apollo 17 spacecraft on its way to the moon. The blue marble captures an astonishing view of the Earth, essentially photographing everyone on the planet except for those in space. This image has become one of the most reproduced in history, competing with other iconic images for the title of the most viewed or most reproduced. The blue marble not only represents a significant achievement in space exploration, but also serves as a powerful reminder of Earth's beauty and fragility. Our next image is called Earthrise. This iconic photograph captures the Earth rising over the moon's horizon, presenting a view of half the Earth from a vast distance, beautifully illuminated by the sun. Earthrise was taken by astronaut William Anders on December 24, 1968, during the Apollo 8 mission. Anders used a highly modified Hasselblad 500 EL camera with an electric drive to capture this stunning image. The photo, which shows the Earth's vibrant colors against the stark monochromatic lunar surface, has become one of the most iconic and powerful images of our planet. Our next image is called the Pale Blue Dot. This iconic photograph of planet Earth was taken on February 14, 1990 by the Voyager 1 space probe from a record distance of about 6 billion kilometers, 3.7 billion miles from Earth. It was part of the Family Portrait series of images of the solar system. In the photograph, Earth's apparent size is less than a pixel, appearing as a tiny dot against the vastness of space, among bands of sunlight reflected on the camera. This image emphasizes the smallness and fragility of our planet in the grand scale of the universe. Voyager 1, having completed its primary mission and on its way out of the solar system, was commanded by NASA to turn its camera around and take one last photograph of Earth at the request of astronomer and author Carl Sagan. He eloquently expressed the profound, humbling realization that comes from seeing Earth as just a tiny speck in the vast cosmos, highlighting our shared humanity and the importance of caring for our planet. Carl Sagan's reflections on this image are often quoted and have become a powerful reminder of our place in the universe. Our next photo is VJ Day in Times Square. This photograph, taken by Alfred Eisenstadt, is a culturally significant image that captures a U.S. Navy sailor embracing and kissing a total stranger a dental assistant, on Victory over Japan Day, VJ Day, in New York City's Times Square on August 14, 1945. The photograph was published a week later in Life magazine among many photographs of celebrations around the United States. It was presented in a 12-page section entitled Victory Celebrations, where it was given a full-page display, highlighting its importance. The image perfectly encapsulates the spontaneous joy and relief felt by millions at the end of World War II. Its iconic status is reinforced by its frequent reproduction and references in popular media, including cartoons, movies, and TV shows like The Simpsons. This continual presence in the cultural zeitgeist has cemented the photo as a symbol of exuberance and the collective celebration of peace. Eisenstedt's photograph not only captures a moment in time, but also embodies the profound emotions of an entire generation, making it a timeless piece of history. Our next image is called Afghan Girl, a 1984 photographic portrait of Sharbat Gula, an Afghan refugee in Pakistan during the Soviet-Afghan War. The photograph was taken by American photojournalist Steve McCurry near the Pakistani city of Peshawar and famously appeared on the June 1985 cover of National Geographic. Initially, the identity of the portrait's subject remained unknown until Gula, an ethnic Pashtun from Afghanistan's Nangarhar province, was identified in early 2002. She was a 12-year-old child residing in Pakistan's Nasir Bagh refugee camp at the time. The portrait has been described as the first world's third world Mona Lisa, referencing Leonardo da Vinci's 16th century painting. Gula's image became emblematic in some social circles as the archetypal refugee girl, deserving of Western compassion and a symbol of Afghanistan to the West. This critique highlights how the photo has been perceived as both a powerful representation of human struggle and a simplification of complex geopolitical issues. Our next image is called Migrant Mother, taken in 1936 in Nipomo, California, by photographer Dorothea Lange. This photo has become an iconic representation of the Great Depression and is considered a classic in American art and international photography. The photograph depicts a mother gazing into the distance with two of her children at her sides and an infant in her lap. The children's faces are obscured as they bury them into their mother's shoulders, which draws the viewer's focus solely to the mother's anxious expression. This intentional composition by Lange eliminates the possibility of competing expressions and directs attention to the mother's face, which powerfully conveys the struggles and resilience of many during the Great Depression. The black and white photograph, approximately the size of a sheet of North American printer paper, has been preserved in the Museum of Modern Art. Raising the flag on Iwo Jima. The iconic photograph of the American flag being raised on Iwo Jima symbolizes one of the final moments of the battle on the island during World War II. This battle was part of the U.S. strategy to capture key islands and eventually target Japan's mainland. The image became a powerful piece of propaganda, symbolizing bravery, honor, and patriotism, as it marked the first time the American flag was hoisted on Japanese soil. Our next photograph is The Pillars of Creation, an awe-inspiring image taken in space. This photo, though centered around the visual spectacle, is also steeped in fascinating scientific details about its formation. The pillars of creation are composed of cool molecular hydrogen and dust, shaped and eroded by photoevaporation from ultraviolet light emitted by nearby hot stars. The leftmost pillar spans about 4 light-years in length, a measurement that underscores its immense size by using time as a distance unit. The finger-like protrusions at the top of the clouds, which are larger than our solar system, become visible due to the shadows cast by evaporating gaseous globules. These eggs are stellar nurseries, incubating new stars that eventually emerge and cause further evaporation of the surrounding gas. The photograph was taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, capturing these elephant trunks of interstellar gas and dust in the Eagle Nebula. The name Pillars of Creation reflects the dual process of star formation and the erosion of gas and dust by the light from recently formed nearby stars. Our next photograph is Tank Man, captured at the northeast edge of Tiananmen Square along Chang'an Avenue shortly after noon on June 5, 1989. This was the day after the Chinese government's violent crackdown on the Tiananmen Square protests. Tank Man is the iconic figure of a lone protester who stood in the middle of the wide avenue, directly in the path of a column of approaching Type 59 tanks. Stuart Franklin, who was on assignment for Time magazine, recounted that shots were fired as the tanks proceeded down the road away from Tiananmen Square until they were blocked by this solitary figure. The man, dressed in a white shirt and black trousers, held 2 shopping bags. As the tanks tried to maneuver around him, he repeatedly stepped into their path, demonstrating nonviolent resistance. The lead tank attempted to drive around him several times, but he persistently blocked its way, ultimately causing the tank to halt and turn off its engine, followed by the other tanks. The man then climbed onto the hull of the lead tank, stopping briefly at the driver's hatch before appearing to converse with a crew member at the gunner's hatch. After this brief interaction, he climbed down, and the tanks restarted their engines. However, the man again positioned himself in front of the lead tank, re-establishing the standoff. Little is publicly known about the identity of the man or the commander of the lead tank. Shortly after the incident, British tabloid Sunday Express named the man as Wang Weilin, a 19-year-old student who was allegedly charged with political hooliganism and attempting to subvert members of the People's Liberation Army. However, this claim has been rejected by internal Chinese Communist Party documents, which reported that they could not locate the man. Our next photo is Buzz Aldrin, photographed by Neil Armstrong during the Apollo 11 mission. This historic mission, which took place from July 16th to July 24th, 1969, was the first time humans landed on the moon. Commander Neil Armstrong and Lunar Module pilot Buzz Aldrin landed the Apollo Lunar Module Eagle on the moon on July 20th, 1969. Armstrong became the first person to step onto the moon's surface 6 hours and 39 minutes later, on July 21st, at around 2:56 UTC. Aldrin joined him 19 minutes later, and together they spent approximately 2.25 hours exploring the site, which they named Tranquility Base upon landing. During their time on the moon, Armstrong and Aldrin collected 47.5 pounds of lunar material to bring back to Earth. Meanwhile, pilot Michael Collins flew the command module Columbia in lunar orbit. The entire mission on the moon's surface lasted for 21 hours and 36 minutes before the lunar module lifted off to rejoin Columbia. This photo of Aldrin, taken by Armstrong, is iconic and symbolizes one of humanity's greatest achievements. It's fascinating to consider that this image captures a moment from the first time humans ever set foot on another celestial body. The next entry is about the falling man, a photograph that comes with a content warning due to its graphic nature. This powerful and controversial image was taken by Associated Press photographer Richard Drew on September 11, 2001. It depicts an unidentified man falling from the North Tower of the World Trade Center during the attacks in New York City. The man, trapped in the upper floors, either fell while trying to find safety or jumped to escape the fire and smoke. The photograph was taken at exactly 9:41 a.m. on that tragic day. Initially, the image sparked widespread criticism when it was published in international media shortly after the attacks. Many viewers found it disturbing, cold-blooded, and ghoulish. However, over the years, the falling man has gained recognition and is now regarded as a masterpiece of photojournalism. It is considered one of the most significant and important pieces of art in the 21st century. The next photograph, known as the last photograph of Omaira Sanchez, is accompanied by a content warning due to the tragic and dark nature of the story behind it. Omaira Sanchez Garzón was a 13-year-old Colombian girl who lost her life in the aftermath of the 1985 eruption of the Nevado del Ruiz volcano. The eruption caused volcanic debris to mix with ice, forming massive lahars, destructive mud flows, landslides, and debris flows that surged into the river valleys below the mountain. These lahars killed more than 25,000 people and obliterated the town of Armero, along with 13 other villages. After a lahar demolished her home, Sanchez was trapped beneath the debris, submerged in water for 3 days. Despite the rescue workers' best efforts, they were unable to save her, as her legs were hopelessly pinned and medical teams lacked the necessary equipment to perform an amputation. Her plight was documented as she bravely endured the ordeal, gradually moving from calmness to agony. Sanchez's courage and dignity touched journalists and relief workers, who did their utmost to comfort her during her final hours. Omaira Sanchez's death drew international attention, highlighting the tragic failures of local officials to respond adequately to the volcanic threat, contrasted with the heroic efforts of volunteer rescue workers who struggled with insufficient supplies and equipment. A photograph of Sanchez, taken by photojournalist Frank Fournier shortly before she died, was published in news outlets worldwide and later awarded the World Press Photo of the Year for 1986. Despite her dire situation, Sanchez remained remarkably positive. She sang with Germán Santamaría Barragán, a journalist working as a volunteer, asked for sweet food, drank soda, and even agreed to be interviewed. At times she was scared and prayed or cried. On the third night, she began hallucinating, expressing concern about being late for school and a math exam. As her condition worsened, her eyes reddened, her face swelled, and her hands whitened. At one point, she selflessly asked the rescuers to leave her so they could rest. Ultimately, the workers returned with a pump in a desperate attempt to save her, but her legs were bent under the concrete as if kneeling, making it impossible to free her without severing them. Lacking the surgical equipment necessary to perform a safe amputation, the doctors present agreed that it was more humane to let her pass away peacefully. Omaira Sanchez suffered for nearly 3 nights, enduring around 60 hours of agony before passing away at approximately 10:05 a.m. on November 16th, likely due to gangrene or hypothermia. The Hindenburg disaster was a tragic airship accident that took place on May 6, 1937, in Manchester Township, New Jersey, USA. The German passenger airship LZ-129 Hindenburg caught fire and was destroyed while attempting to dock with its mooring mast at Naval Air Station Lakehurst. The disaster resulted in 35 fatalities, including 13 passengers and 22 crew members from the 97 people on board, which consisted of 36 passengers and 61 crew members. Additionally, 1 person on the ground also lost their life. The catastrophe was widely covered in newsreels, photographs, and the famous recorded radio eyewitness report by Herbert Morrison, which was broadcast the following day. Several theories have been proposed to explain both the ignition source and the initial fuel for the fire. The extensive media coverage and the horrific nature of the event shattered public confidence in large passenger-carrying rigid airships, effectively marking the end of the airship era. It's understandable why this disaster had such a profound impact on public perception. Into the Jaws of Death. Into the Jaws of Death is a renowned photograph from World War II, taken on June 6, 1944, during the D-Day landings. This historic event saw American, British, Canadian, and Allied forces storm the beaches of Nazi-occupied Europe, marking the first successful assault on this front in years. The photo captures the daunting sight of Omaha Beach, littered with German defenses like bunkers, mines, and machine guns. The image serves as a somber reminder of the immense sacrifices made, as many soldiers never made it out of the water. Abbey Road. The Abbey Road photograph graces the cover of the Beatles' iconic album of the same name. The image shows the 4 band members walking across a zebra crossing on Abbey Road in London. Though simple, this photo has become a symbol of the band and is instantly recognizable worldwide. While it is merely an album cover, it holds a special place in music history and pop culture. The Instagram egg. The Instagram egg is a seemingly simple image of an egg that holds the record for being the most liked photo on Instagram, and indeed any media platform in history. Posted by the account @WorldRecordEgg, the photo aimed to break the record for the most liked post on Instagram and succeeded spectacularly. Beyond just setting a record, the campaign also sought to raise awareness about mental health issues. Bernie Sanders' inauguration meme. During the presidential inauguration of 2021, where Joe Biden was sworn in as President of the United States, Bernie Sanders, a well-known American politician, became an unexpected meme sensation. Dressed warmly in a parka and oversized mittens, Sanders' practical attire for the cold January day caught the public's imagination. Despite the significance of the event, the image of Sanders sitting alone, bundled up, and looking unamused quickly became more famous than the ceremony itself, circulating widely across social media. Lunch atop a skyscraper is an iconic photograph taken during the construction of the RCA building, now known as the GE building, at Rockefeller Center in New York City. Captured by Charles C. Ebbets on September 20, 1932, the image depicts 11 ironworkers casually eating lunch, chatting, and even smoking while seated on a girder with their feet dangling 840 feet above the city streets. The photograph was staged as part of a promotional campaign for the new skyscraper, yet it vividly captures the fearless and nonchalant attitude of the workers who built the city's skyline during the Great Depression. Despite the apparent danger, the men seem relaxed and at ease, showcasing their bravery and the camaraderie among the workforce. The Situation Room is the title of an iconic photograph taken by White House photographer Pete Souza. The image was captured at 4:05 p.m. on May 1, 2011, in the White House Situation Room. It depicts then-President Barack Obama and his national security team receiving live updates on Operation Neptune Spear, the mission that resulted in the death of Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda. Pete Souza provided some context for this photograph in an interview with Time magazine in late 2012. He explained that the White House Situation Room consists of several conference rooms. Usually, the president holds meetings in a large conference room with assigned seating. However, for monitoring this critical mission, the team moved into a much smaller conference room. President Obama chose to sit next to Brigadier General Marshall B. Brad Webb, Assistant Commanding General of Joint Special Operations Command, who was the primary point of communication during the operation. Other team members stood at the back of the room due to the limited space. Souza, cramped in a corner of the room with little room to maneuver, took approximately 100 photographs during the mission. One notable aspect of the image is that a classified document, visible in front of then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, has been obscured for security reasons. Guerrillero Heroico, or Heroic Guerrilla Fighter, is an iconic photograph of Che Guevara, a revolutionary Marxist figure. Guevara played a significant role in spreading communist revolutions throughout Latin America, achieving various successes. Though known for his ruthless tactics, he has become a symbol of communist and anti-establishment movements worldwide. The image has been widely reproduced, often in stylized forms, and remains a powerful representation of rebellion and revolution. The iconic image of Bruce McCandless captures a historic moment in space exploration, the first untethered spacewalk. Born Byron Willis McCandless on June 8, 1937, McCandless was a United States Navy officer, aviator, electrical engineer, and NASA astronaut. This remarkable photograph was taken during his mission on February 7, 1984, using the Manned Maneuvering Unit, MMU. In the image, McCandless floats freely in the vastness of space, untethered from any spacecraft, showcasing both the incredible advancements in space technology and the bravery required for such a mission. The MMU, a nitrogen-propelled backpack, allowed him to move in space without being connected to the shuttle. This moment marked a significant milestone, demonstrating the potential for astronauts to conduct repairs and other tasks in space without the need for tethers. Black Power salute at the 1968 Olympics. During the medal ceremony at the 1968 Olympic Games in Mexico City, athletes Tommy Smith and John Carlos made a powerful statement by raising their fists in a Black Power salute while the U.S. national anthem played. Smith and Carlos, who won gold and bronze medals respectively, stood on the podium facing the U.S. flag with their heads bowed and fists raised. All three medalists, including Australian silver medalist Peter Norman, wore human rights badges. While the raised fists have since become a symbol of Black Power, the gesture was originally intended to symbolize a broader call for human rights. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall is a famous ghost photograph taken at Raynham Hall in Norfolk, England. The image allegedly captures a spectral figure descending a staircase, believed to be the ghost of Lady Dorothy Walpole. This ghost story has become a well-known part of local lore, and some claim that visitors to Raynham Hall can still encounter the spirit. However, like many ghost stories, its authenticity remains a topic of debate. Golden Record pictures. The Voyager Golden Records, carried by the Voyager 1 and 2 spacecraft, contain images and sounds intended to represent Earth and humanity to any extraterrestrial life that might find them. Launched into space, these records serve as a time capsule detailing human life, culture, and the diversity of our planet. They include pictures of people, animals, plants, and various aspects of life on Earth. If these records are ever discovered by intelligent alien life, they would offer a glimpse into our existence and convey a message of who we are. Dewey defeats Truman. Dewey defeats Truman is a famously incorrect headline printed by the Chicago Daily Tribune on November 3, 1948. The banner declared Thomas E. Dewey the winner of the U.S. presidential election, but in reality, President Harry S. Truman won. The next day, Truman was famously photographed holding the newspaper, smiling at the erroneous headline, a moment that has since become iconic. The Woman with the Handbag. This Swedish photograph, known as The Woman with the Handbag, captures a woman striking a neo-Nazi skinhead with her purse during a demonstration. The image has come to symbolize resistance against fascism in Europe. However, it's important to note that the woman involved, despite being Jewish and opposing fascism, later expressed regret over the incident. Her actions were not driven by a sense of heroism, but rather influenced by her mental state at the time. Raising the Soviet flag over the Reichstag. The photograph of Soviet soldiers raising their flag over the Reichstag in Berlin is one of the most iconic images symbolizing the end of World War II in Europe. Taken in May 1945, this image represents the fall of Nazi Germany and the triumph of Soviet forces. For many Russians, it is a powerful symbol of patriotism and the end of fascism in Europe. Marina Ginesta. The photograph of Marina Ginesta, a young woman standing with a rifle during the Spanish Civil War, is one of the war's most famous images. Taken in 1936, Ginesta was a French immigrant of Spanish descent, just 17 years old at the time. The photo has become a lasting symbol of the Spanish left and anti-fascist movements. The Boulevard du Temple photograph, taken by Louis Daguerre in 1838 or 1839, is one of the earliest known daguerreotypes. While the image appears to depict a deserted Parisian street, it is widely considered the first photograph to include a human figure. The person visible in the lower left corner is a man having his shoes shined, an incidental yet historic moment captured in one of photography's earliest days. Monolith, the Face of Half Dome. Monolith, the Face of Half Dome is a famous photograph taken at Yosemite National Park in California, capturing the dramatic face of Half Dome, a notable granite formation. This image is more than just a picture of a rock. It represents one of the first instances where photography was used to convey emotion and environmental consciousness. The photo has become a visual symbol for the environmental movement, highlighting the beauty and grandeur of nature. Kent State shooting. The Kent State shooting occurred on May 4, 1970, when the Ohio National Guard opened fire on students protesting the expansion of the Vietnam War into Cambodia. The tragic event took place at Kent State University and resulted in the deaths of 4 students and injuries to 9 others. This incident shocked the nation and became a significant moment in the anti-war movement, symbolizing the deep divisions and unrest of the era. Hubble Deep Field. The Hubble Deep Field is a collection of images taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, capturing a small region in the constellation Ursa Major. These photographs reveal a glimpse into the distant universe, showcasing around 3,000 galaxies, many of which are billions of years old. The HDF images provide a breathtaking view of the cosmos, highlighting the vastness and diversity of galaxies far beyond our own Milky Way. Crying Jordan meme. The Crying Jordan meme originated from a photograph taken during Michael Jordan's Basketball Hall of Fame induction speech in 2009, where he was visibly emotional. However, the image only became a widely popular meme in 2014, often used to represent moments of disappointment or sadness. The meme has since become an enduring part of internet culture. Windmill fire tragedy. In 2009, a tragic incident occurred in the Netherlands when two engineers were trapped atop a windmill that caught fire. With no escape route available due to the blaze blocking the stairs, the men faced a dire choice: jump or succumb to the flames. Sadly, one of the engineers fell to his death, while the other was later found in the wreckage. This harrowing event is a somber reminder of the dangers faced by workers in hazardous situations. Piss Christ is a controversial art piece by Andres Serrano depicting a crucifix submerged in a glass tank filled with the artist's urine. The artwork has sparked intense debate, with some praising it for its bold commentary on the crucifixion's raw reality, while others have condemned it as blasphemous. The piece was intended to highlight the physical suffering and indignities endured by Christ during his crucifixion. The Day the Earth Smiled. The Day the Earth Smiled is a photograph taken by NASA's Cassini spacecraft during an eclipse of the Sun in 2013. The image captures Saturn, its rings, and Earth as a tiny, distant dot. This photograph offers a rare perspective, showing our planet as a small, pale speck in the vastness of space, evoking a sense of unity and the fragility of our world. The Loch Ness Monster, affectionately known as Nessie, is one of the most iconic creatures in folklore, rivaling Bigfoot in fame. The most famous evidence of Nessie's existence is the surgeon's photograph, which was later proven to be a hoax. Despite the debunking, the image still fuels the legend and speculation about the creature's existence. The assassination of Lee Harvey Oswald. On November 24, 1963, Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused assassin of President John F. Kennedy, was shot and killed by Jack Ruby. The event was captured live on television and in a now iconic photograph. Oswald was being transferred from a Dallas jail when Ruby, a nightclub owner, shot him in apparent retaliation for Kennedy's murder and the killing of police officer J.D. The photograph captures the raw emotions of the moment, with Oswald's shocked expression, the stunned reaction of the escorting officers, and the chaos of the scene. St. Paul survives. Taken during the night raid of December 29 to 30, 1940, during the London Blitz, this photograph shows St. Paul's Cathedral standing resilient amidst the devastation. The image, which captures the cathedral surrounded by smoke, fire, and rubble, became a powerful symbol of British endurance and determination during World War II. The Auschwitz Album. The Auschwitz Album is a haunting photographic record of the Holocaust during World War II. Among its many tragic images, one of the most poignant shows Hungarian Jews arriving at Auschwitz, with the infamous camp structures visible in the background. This image encapsulates the horror and inhumanity of the Holocaust, depicting the grim reality faced by countless victims as they were sent to their deaths. The execution of a Vietnamese soldier. This harrowing image captures the execution of a North Vietnamese soldier by a South Vietnamese general during the Vietnam War. The incident occurred in Saigon and was captured by an American photographer. The photograph shows the brutal reality of the conflict, with the soldier being executed in the street. The Valley of the Shadow of Death. This photograph, taken during the Crimean War, shows a desolate valley littered with cannonballs. The area was heavily shelled and became a site of many deaths, particularly among British soldiers. The image, captured by English photographer Roger Fenton, was one of the earliest attempts to document the grim realities of war through photography. The Solvay Conference. The Solvay Conference is a prestigious gathering of the world's leading physicists and chemists, first held in 1911. The photograph from the 1927 conference is particularly famous, featuring some of the greatest minds in science, including Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, and Erwin Schrödinger. These conferences have been crucial in addressing fundamental questions in physics and chemistry. The elephant's foot. The elephant's foot is a highly radioactive mass of corium and other materials that formed beneath the Chernobyl nuclear reactor during the 1986 disaster. Located under Reactor 4, it remains one of the most radioactive objects in the world. While its radioactivity has decreased over time, it was once extremely dangerous due to the decay of the radioactive material. The Shell Shock Soldier. This poignant photograph depicts a soldier suffering from shell shock, now known as PTSD, during World War I. The war was a brutal experience for many soldiers, exposing them to gas attacks, trench warfare, and relentless machine gun fire. The term shell shock was used to describe the psychological trauma that many soldiers endured during the conflict. The Omagh bombing. The Omagh bombing occurred on August 15, 1998, in Omagh, County Tyrone, Northern Ireland. The Real IRA, a splinter group opposed to the peace process, planted the car bomb that killed 29 people and injured over 200. A photograph taken moments before the explosion shows a father and child near the bomb. Miraculously, they survived, but the attack remains one of the deadliest incidents during the Troubles. Blanche Monnier. Blanche Monnier, also known as La Séquestrée de Poitiers, was a French woman confined to a small room by her mother for 25 years. Discovered by police in a horrific state, Monnier had been kept in darkness and squalor, never seeing sunlight throughout her captivity. Her story became a symbol of unimaginable cruelty and neglect. Combat. Combat is a striking black and white photograph from 1942, showing a Soviet military officer armed with a pistol rallying his men for an attack against the Germans. Despite knowing the time and general location, the identity of the officer remains uncertain. Some believe it to be junior officer Alexei Yeremenko, who reportedly died on the same day the photo was taken. This image is a powerful symbol of Soviet patriotism used in both Russia and Ukraine. Bitterroot Forest Fire. This iconic photograph captures a pair of mountain elks standing in a river, seeking refuge from a raging forest fire in Montana's Bitterroot Forest. The image, celebrated for its portrayal of nature's power and resilience, has been featured by NASA and Time magazine, highlighting the delicate balance of life on Earth. Solway Firth Spaceman. In this eerie photograph taken by Jim Templeton, a mysterious figure resembling a spaceman appears behind his daughter. Though it looks like there were only 2 people in the field, it's believed that the spaceman is actually Templeton's wife, accidentally captured in the background. The image sparked various theories, but the most plausible explanation remains that it was an accidental inclusion of his wife in the shot. First scanned photo. This seemingly ordinary image of a baby holds historical significance as the first ever scanned photograph. Taken in 1957 by a team led by Russell A. Kirsch, the photo shows Kirsch's infant son. Using an early wire photo drum scanner, they digitized the image, marking a significant milestone in the history of digital imaging. Fountain, created by Marcel Duchamp in 1917, is a controversial piece of art that consists of a porcelain urinal signed Mutt. The artwork challenged traditional notions of art, sparking debates about what constitutes art and anti-art. Frame 313. Frame 313 of the Zapruder film is one of the most infamous frames in history, capturing the exact moment of President John F. Kennedy's assassination in Dallas, Texas. This frame shows the fatal shot's impact, making it a critical piece of evidence in the investigation and a haunting reminder of the tragic event. John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams, the 6th President of the United States, is notably one of the first U.S. presidents to be photographed. The image represents an important historical milestone in the evolution of photography and presidential documentation. While Adams may not be as well known today, his photograph marks the beginning of a tradition in American history. Dancing Man is an iconic Australian photograph akin to the famous VJ Day in Times Square image. It depicts a man joyously dancing in the streets, celebrating the end of World War II. This photograph is a significant cultural symbol in Australia, capturing the country's relief and happiness at the war's conclusion. Robert Budd Dwyer. Robert Budd Dwyer was a Pennsylvania politician who tragically took his own life during a press conference on January 22, 1987. The event was captured on both film and in photographs, and shockingly, the footage was briefly available on platforms like YouTube Kids. The incident remains a grim reminder of the impact of public and political pressure. Wait for Me, Daddy. Wait for Me, Daddy is a poignant photograph taken on October 1, 1940, depicting a young boy named Warren Whitey Bernard running after his father, Private Jack Bernard, as his regiment marches down the street in New Westminster, British Columbia. The image quickly became an iconic representation of the Canadian war effort, and has been widely used in Canadian wartime propaganda and commemorative materials. Sacramento Street in San Francisco. This photograph shows people looking down Sacramento Street in San Francisco during the devastating earthquake of 1906. The massive plume of smoke in the background marks the fire that swept through the city, causing widespread destruction and loss of life. It's a stark reminder of the disaster's impact on the city. Tunguska event. The Tunguska event was a massive explosion in 1908 in a remote area of Siberia, Russia, caused by a meteor. The blast, equivalent to 12 megatons of TNT, flattened over 800 square miles of forest. If it had occurred over a populated area, the devastation would have been catastrophic. The photo shows the aftermath, with trees knocked down in a radial pattern. Mount Rushmore before carving. This eerie image shows the Black Hills, specifically the site of Mount Rushmore, before the famous carvings of the 4 U.S. presidents were added. The uncarved mountain has an almost ghostly quality, as the outlines of the future sculptures seem faintly present. It's a glimpse of history before the iconic monument was completed. First selfie by Robert Cornelius. Robert Cornelius, an American photographer and pioneer in the history of photography, took the first known selfie in 1839. This grainy black and white image is a humble beginning to the now ubiquitous practice of taking self-portraits. Though the quality is poor, it marks a significant moment in photographic history. Eyes of Hatred. This chilling photograph, known as Eyes of Hatred, captures the moment German propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels realized that the photographer was Jewish. The intense glare from Goebbels reveals the deep-seated anti-Semitism prevalent in Nazi Germany, making the image a haunting reminder of the era's pervasive hatred. Vladimir Komarov. Vladimir Komarov was a Soviet cosmonaut who tragically died during the Soyuz 1 mission. The image shows his charred remains after the spacecraft crashed upon re-entry in 1967. Komarov's death was a direct result of the spacecraft's numerous technical flaws, which he was aware of, but still undertook the mission. His final moments were filled with curses towards the Soviet officials who had sent him on a doomed mission. First aerial photo. In 1860, James Wallace Black captured the first aerial photograph from a hot air balloon named Queen of the Air. The image shows Boston from above, marking a pioneering moment in photography. Aerial photography was a daring endeavor at the time, requiring great courage and technical skill. Hubble Ultra Deep Field. The Hubble Ultra Deep Field image, taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, shows a stunning array of galaxies, with around 10,000 visible in the photograph. This breathtaking image offers a glimpse into the vastness and beauty of the universe, showcasing countless stars, planets, and possibly even life. David by Michelangelo. Michelangelo's David is one of the most renowned sculptures in art history. Originally placed in the public square in Florence, Italy, the statue has been moved to a museum for preservation. The image shows David in his outdoor location, where a fig leaf was occasionally added to cover his nudity due to modesty concerns. David during World War II. During World War II, the statue of David was at risk of being damaged by Allied bombings as they advanced through Italy. To protect the iconic artwork, a protective dome was constructed around the statue. This precaution successfully preserved David, and he remains a symbol of Florence's rich cultural heritage to this day. Explorer 6. This isn't just any photo, it's the very first image of Earth taken from orbit. What you're looking at is a blurry, almost indistinguishable picture. The bright area is the Central Pacific, illuminated by sunlight, while the rest of the world is cloaked in darkness. It's not much to look at, fuzzy and unclear, but this blurry mess marks a historic moment, the first time humanity captured an image of our planet from space. The first lightning photograph. The image you see here dates back to the 1880s and holds the distinction of being the first photo ever taken of lightning. Capturing it was no easy task. The equipment was primitive, the timing had to be perfect, and the dedication was extraordinary. The photographer, William Jennings, took on the challenge almost as a dare. People at the time believed lightning was just simple zigzags in the sky, but Jennings aimed to prove them wrong. And prove them wrong he did. This photograph captures the intricate and fearsome shape of lightning as we know it today. The first photograph of a solar eclipse, taken in 1851. We all know what a solar eclipse is, when the moon passes in front of the sun, casting a shadow on Earth. Today, it's a spectacle we might experience a few times in our lives, often with special glasses to view it safely. But in 1851, capturing an eclipse on camera was a monumental task. The equipment was primitive, and getting the timing just right was a major challenge. Yet, despite the odds, they succeeded, marking the moment when this celestial event was captured for the first time. This image, considered one of the most iconic in the history of photography, is actually of a nautilus shell standing on its end against a dark background. Taken by Edward Weston, it's hailed as a masterpiece of modernism. Weston was inspired by the almost magical quality of seashells, and this photograph has been described as transcending the ordinary, evoking deep emotions and revealing beauty in unexpected ways. Machu Picchu's first photograph. This old photograph is the first ever image taken of Machu Picchu, dating back to 1911 when the ancient city was rediscovered. The picture was snapped by Hiram Bingham, the same explorer who brought the site to the world's attention. Machu Picchu is an ancient pre-Columbian city, shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Although it's known that the city could house up to 750 people, only 173 skeletons were found. This photograph, however, serves as a gateway into that very mystery, capturing the world's imagination and prompting extensive coverage by National Geographic. The first photographed smile. Meet Willie, the subject of yet another historic photograph, this one being the first image ever taken of someone smiling. Still life with plaster casts made by Daguerre in 1837. This image was taken back in 1837 and represents an early attempt to elevate photography to an art form. Traditionally, still lifes were meticulously arranged and then painted, but with photography, that process was reduced to a single, instantaneous capture. While it might not be as impressive as the labor-intensive paintings, it's still a remarkable achievement in the history of photography. The Great Picture. The title, The Great Picture, might sound grandiose, and you might wonder if it's really deserving of that name. What we're seeing is a black and white image of a ship, which, on its own, might not seem extraordinary. However, what makes this photograph truly remarkable is its size. It holds the world record for being the largest photograph ever printed. You can even see people standing next to it for scale. The Falling Soldier. Now we're venturing into the more unsettling territory of the iceberg. The first of these not-safe-for-life images is a haunting photograph of a man at the moment of his death. Titled The Falling Soldier, or Loyalist Militiaman at the Moment of Death, this photograph was taken in 1936 during the Spanish Civil War. The man in the photo is believed to be Federico Burrell Garcia, an anarchist militia member fighting for the Republicans. This powerful image captures the tragic reality of war, often accompanied by the poignant reminder that freedom isn't free. Mummified Captain. Next, we have an image that truly falls into the not safe for life category. This photograph shows the mummified remains of a captain found off the coast of the Philippines. At first glance, you might think he's been dead for years, but according to scientists, he had only been deceased for about a week. The autopsy revealed that the man died of a heart attack while trapped on his boat. As the investigation continued, more details about his life emerged, including his attempts to contact his wife, tampering with his food, and desperate efforts to use the radio. His death, and the story behind it, add layers of tragedy to this haunting image. The Odessa Catacombs. This next image takes us deep into the Odessa Catacombs in Ukraine, a place as eerie and dangerous as the more famous catacombs in Paris. The photograph tells the tragic story of a girl named Masha, who we see here. On New Year's Eve, Masha went out drinking with friends, and they decided to explore the catacombs. However, in a drunken haze, her friends left her behind, whether by accident or on purpose. Masha never made it out. When her classmates went searching for her later, they discovered this, what they believed to be her body. She had died of dehydration, lost in the pitch-black maze of tunnels. It's a harrowing reminder of how these underground labyrinths often lead to the most tragic of fates, lost, alone, and succumbing to starvation, thirst, or injury deep beneath the earth. The Black Dahlia. This haunting image is associated with one of California's most infamous unsolved mysteries, the Black Dahlia. The woman in the photograph, Elizabeth Short, was found brutally murdered in Los Angeles in 1947. Her body had been mutilated, severed in half, and displayed in a grotesque manner, sparking a media frenzy. Despite numerous theories and suspects, her killer was never identified, leaving the case an enduring mystery that still fascinates and horrifies to this day. The Byford Dolphin Accident. The Byford Dolphin Accident is one of the most gruesome and tragic deaths ever recorded in the history of deep-sea diving. This incident took place under the Byford Dolphin oil rig, where divers were working in a pressurized chamber deep beneath the ocean. A catastrophic error occurred when a chamber hatch was improperly sealed, causing a rapid decompression. The pressure difference was so extreme that one of the divers was literally torn apart, with his body parts scattered up to 10 meters away. The accident resulted in one of the most horrific deaths imaginable and left 4 others severely injured. Intersex photography. This image presents a different kind of not safe for life content. It features a person who is intersex, possessing both male and female genitalia. Though graphic, the photograph highlights the early history of intersex individuals and the evolving understanding of gender and sex changes. This kind of image would have been heavily censored at the time, but it holds significance in documenting the complex nature of human biology and identity. Albert Fish's pelvis X-ray. Albert Fish was one of the most sadistic serial killers in history, notorious for his gruesome crimes involving torture, murder, and cannibalism of children. This image shows an X-ray of his pelvis, revealing up to 29 needles embedded in his flesh. Fish inserted these needles into his body as a form of self-inflicted torture, driven by his insatiable need for pain. His heinous acts and the twisted psychology behind them make him one of the most disturbing figures in criminal history. Ruth Snyder's execution. This photograph captures the final moments of Ruth Snyder, a convicted murderer, as she was executed by electric chair in 1928. The image was famously published in the New York Daily News, becoming one of the most iconic images of its time. Taken mid-execution, the photo shows Snyder at the moment of death, a stark and shocking depiction of capital punishment that sparked widespread debate about the ethics of such public displays. Stalin and the fall of Kiev. This rare and unauthorized photograph shows Soviet leader Joseph Stalin shortly after learning that Kiev had fallen to German forces during World War II in 1941. The Battle of Kiev was a catastrophic defeat for the Soviet Union, with nearly 700,000 Soviet troops encircled and captured by the Germans. The image captures a moment of vulnerability and defeat, which was carefully kept hidden during Stalin's reign. The photo remained suppressed until after Stalin's death, revealing a side of the dictator that the world was never meant to see. Edna Sintron at the World Trade Center. This photograph captures the desperation and horror of the September 11 attacks. In the image, you can barely see Edna Sintron, a worker at the World Trade Center, waving for help from a gaping hole in the building. Most of her colleagues died instantly when the plane struck, but Edna survived the initial impact, hoping for rescue. Tragically, that help never came. The exact circumstances of her death remain unknown. Some speculate she may have fallen or chosen to jump, while others believe she perished in the fire and collapse that followed. Hiroshima Shadows. The Hiroshima shadows are haunting reminders of the devastation caused by the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima during World War II. These shadows were left behind when the intense heat from the explosion vaporized human bodies, leaving behind their silhouettes etched onto the surfaces they were near. The most famous of these is a darkened spot on a stairwell where someone was sitting when the bomb detonated. The person was obliterated instantly, and all that remains is this eerie shadow, a permanent mark of the moment life was extinguished. The Haystack, 1844. This 1844 photograph, known as the Haystack, is often cited as one of the most significant early photographs. It is celebrated for its poetic depiction of rural life, capturing the essence of nature, the labor of harvest, and the continuity of tradition. The image, while not necessarily famous in popular culture, holds great importance in the history of photography for its artistic qualities and its role in showcasing the beauty of everyday life. The first photographic middle finger. This amusing piece of history is the first known photograph to capture the middle finger as a gesture of defiance. Taken in 1886, the image features Charles "Old Hoss" Radbourne, a baseball pitcher for the Boston Beaneaters, flipping off a member of the New York Giants, a rival team. The gesture, brought to America by Italian immigrants, has since become a universal symbol of contempt, with this photograph marking its earliest documented use in this form. This seemingly ordinary photo holds a chilling significance, as it was the last image taken by one of the hikers involved in the infamous Dyatlov Pass incident. The Dyatlov Pass incident, a mystery that still baffles experts today, involved the unexplained deaths of 9 hikers in the Ural Mountains of Siberia, Russia. Found on the camera of one of the deceased, the photo is blurry, offering little in terms of concrete clues. Despite its simplicity, the photo has become a symbol of the enduring mystery surrounding the hiker's tragic fate. Autopsy photos. After the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, an autopsy was conducted to understand how the bullets struck him and to determine the extent of the injuries. The photos taken during the autopsy were intended to document the findings and provide a visual aid for the official report. However, these images have a haunting quality, especially for those who are disturbed by the sight of a lifeless body. While the photos serve a clinical purpose, they also evoke a deep sense of tragedy and the chilling reality of JFK's assassination. The last photo of Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. This photo, found on the phone of one of the 2 Dutch girls who disappeared in Panama in 2014, is the final piece of a tragic puzzle. Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon, who were volunteering in Panama, went for a hike near a volcano on April 1st and never returned. Weeks later, their remains were discovered in a remote area, with their bones found in a disturbing state, bleached, meatless, and without any signs of animal interference. The photo, taken just before their disappearance, offers no clear answers, leaving their fate shrouded in mystery and raising more questions than it answers. Okay, now we are done with the iceberg, but there are a few photos that weren't in the iceberg, but I think they are worth mentioning. And now I'll show each for 10 seconds without narration, so you can skip any you want instantly with the double tap or the forward button.